At my office party, they called me the company's biggest loser, until I revealed my true identity. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I stood in the corner of the conference room, watching clusters of colleagues laugh and mingle. It was our annual office Christmas party, and like every year, I found myself gravitating toward the shadows where I could observe without being noticed. The room had been transformed with tinsel and fairy lights, but even the festive decorations couldn't mask the sterile corporate environment we all inhabited 5 days a week. I adjusted my glasses, feeling the familiar weight of invisibility settle over me. To most of my coworkers, I was just another face in the crowd, the quiet marketing assistant who kept to herself and always met her deadlines. They didn't know about my late-night coding sessions or how I spent weekends buried in technical books and online courses. All they saw was the woman who preferred spreadsheets to small talk and carried her lunch in brown paper bags. "Hey, isn't that Sarah?" A voice cut through my thoughts, and I turned to see Greg from accounting pointing in my direction. "Yeah, she's been here 5 years now?" replied Michelle from HR, her words carrying across the room. "And she's still stuck in the same position. Must be some kind of record." Their laughter mingled with the holiday music playing softly in the background. I felt the familiar sting of their words, but forced a smile. This wasn't new territory for me. Over the years, I'd learned to build walls around my emotions, to let these moments slide off like water on glass. But tonight felt different somehow. Maybe it was the way their eyes lingered on my outdated blazer, or how they seemed to measure my worth solely by my lack of career advancement. Or perhaps it was the subtle shake in my hands as I reached for my glass of punch, realizing that after all this time, I still cared what they thought. What they didn't know, what no one at this party knew, was that I'd been playing a long game. While they were climbing the corporate ladder rung by rung, I'd been building something far more substantial in the shadows. Each night after work, while others were networking at happy hours or binge-watching shows, I was teaching myself skills that would soon render their petty office politics irrelevant. The irony was almost poetic. They saw me as a loser while I held the keys to a future they couldn't even imagine. As I watched them cluster together, exchanging superficial pleasantries and thinly veiled insults, I felt a strange sense of detachment. Tonight would be different. Tonight, everything was about to change. The revelation I'd been preparing for months was ready to unfold, and when it did, their perception of me, of everything, would never be the same again. The journey that led me to this moment began 3 years ago, during what I now think of as my quiet revolution. It started innocuously enough, a free online course in Python programming that I stumbled upon during one of my rare evenings of internet browsing. At first, it was just a way to pass the time, something to occupy my mind after the monotony of data entry and report generation at work. But within weeks, I found myself completely absorbed, spending every spare moment learning about algorithms, data structures, and machine learning. My transformation began subtly. The lunch breaks that were once spent alone in the break room, reading novels to escape the office chatter, became precious coding sessions. I'd sit in my car, laptop balanced precariously on the steering wheel, working through tutorials while eating my carefully packed meals. Nights that were once filled with aimless television watching turned into marathon study sessions. I devoured books on artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and cybersecurity, often falling asleep with my head resting on open textbooks. The financial sacrifices were significant but necessary. Instead of upgrading my wardrobe or indulging in weekend getaways like my colleagues, I invested every spare penny into courses, workshops, and equipment. My ancient desktop computer gave way to a powerful workstation, its constant hum becoming the soundtrack to my metamorphosis. The money that might have gone towards social events or trendy coffee shops was redirected to cloud computing resources and premium learning platforms. What surprised me most was how natural this evolution felt. The more I immersed myself in technology, the more alive I felt. Each new concept mastered, each complex problem solved, filled me with a sense of accomplishment that no corporate promotion ever could. I began seeing patterns and possibilities everywhere, in the way traffic flowed through city streets, in the behavior of shoppers at the grocery store, in the rhythms of office conversations themselves. But perhaps the most profound change was internal. The shy, insecure woman who had once cringed at the sound of her own voice in meetings grew into someone who could command attention when necessary. Through countless online forums and virtual conferences, I learned to articulate complex ideas with clarity and confidence. The walls I had built around myself weren't barriers anymore, they had become a fortress of knowledge and self-assurance. Yet I maintained my facade at work, continuing to play the role of the unassuming marketing assistant. I knew that revealing my true capabilities too soon would only invite scrutiny and potentially jeopardize my plans. So I continued to blend into the background, all while building something extraordinary in the shadows. The satisfaction of knowing that I possessed knowledge and skills far beyond anything my colleagues could imagine became its own reward, fueling my determination to see this transformation through to its inevitable conclusion. The turning point came on a crisp autumn morning, 6 months before the office party, when an email from Technova Innovations changed everything. They were holding their annual global hackathon competition, searching for groundbreaking solutions to urban sustainability challenges. The grand prize wasn't just a substantial cash reward, it was an opportunity to pitch directly to venture capitalists and industry leaders. My heart raced as I read through the requirements, recognizing immediately that this was the platform I needed. Working in complete secrecy became both exhilarating and exhausting. My tiny apartment transformed into a command center, with whiteboards covering every available wall and cables snaking across the floor. I developed a system of coded alerts on my phone to warn me when neighbors were approaching, ensuring I could quickly switch screens if anyone knocked. Sleep became a luxury I could barely afford, but the vision of what I was creating kept me going. The project itself was something I had been conceptualizing for over a year, an AI-driven platform that could revolutionize urban waste management systems. It combined machine learning algorithms with blockchain technology to create a transparent, efficient network for waste tracking and recycling incentives. The complexity of the system required integrating multiple cutting-edge technologies, pushing me to learn and adapt at an unprecedented pace. Each component of the platform presented its own challenges. The AI needed to accurately predict waste generation patterns based on various factors, from weather conditions to local events. The blockchain implementation had to ensure data integrity while maintaining processing speed. And the user interface had to be intuitive enough for both municipal workers and everyday citizens to use effectively. Countless nights were spent debugging code, optimizing algorithms, and refining security protocols. What made this endeavor particularly challenging was the need to keep it completely separate from my day job. During office hours, I maintained my usual routine, processing marketing reports and attending meetings with the same quiet efficiency that had earned me my reputation as a reliable but unremarkable employee. Yet beneath this facade, my mind was constantly working on the project, solving problems in the background while I went through the motions of my daily tasks. The stress of maintaining this double life was immense. There were moments when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me, when the weight of keeping such a monumental secret pressed down so heavily that I considered giving up. But each time doubt crept in, I remembered the condescending smiles and dismissive comments from my colleagues. Those memories fueled my determination, transforming what could have been debilitating pressure into relentless drive. As the hackathon deadline approached, the intensity of my work reached fever pitch. Entire weekends disappeared into coding marathons, punctuated only by brief naps and hurried meals. My social life evaporated completely, though truthfully, I hadn't had much of one to begin with. What remained was a singular focus, a laser-sharp dedication to bringing my vision to life. Every line of code, every successful integration, brought me closer to the moment when I could finally step out of the shadows and reveal the truth about who I really was. The day of the office party arrived, and with it came the culmination of months of careful planning. As I stood in front of the assembled crowd, my heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The room had fallen silent, all eyes fixed on me as I prepared to unveil what I had kept hidden for so long. The weight of their judgmental gazes, which had once felt like shackles, now seemed insignificant compared to the gravity of what I was about to share. "I know many of you have opinions about my place in this company," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "You've called me the company's biggest loser, a perpetual underachiever content with mediocrity." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the room, but I pressed on. "What you don't know is that while you were focused on climbing the corporate ladder, I was building something that will redefine how cities manage their resources." Reaching into my bag, I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the projector system. The screen flickered to life, displaying the sleek interface of my platform. Gasps rippled through the room as I demonstrated how the AI could predict waste generation patterns with uncanny accuracy, how the blockchain technology ensured transparency in every transaction, and how the incentive system could revolutionize recycling participation rates. Each feature I showcased drew more astonished murmurs from the crowd. "But this isn't just theoretical," I continued, projecting screenshots of emails from Technova Innovations confirming my selection as a finalist in their global competition. "Next month, I'll be presenting this solution to industry leaders and venture capitalists. The same technology you dismissed as irrelevant when I occasionally mentioned coding has the potential to transform urban infrastructure worldwide. The room had transformed from a space of casual celebration to one of rapt attention. Even Greg from accounting, who had mocked my position earlier, was leaning forward in his seat, mouth slightly agape. Michelle from HR had stopped sipping her drink mid-motion, her glass frozen halfway to her lips. Their expressions mirrored the exact moment realization dawned, that the person they had underestimated held the power to reshape industries. What you're seeing today is just the beginning, I explained, moving through slides that detailed potential applications in energy management, transportation optimization, and environmental conservation. This platform represents years of dedicated work, countless sleepless nights, and a vision that extends far beyond the confines of this office. While you were concerned with quarterly reports and departmental politics, I was developing solutions to problems most people haven't even recognized yet. The atmosphere in the room had shifted dramatically. The artificial barriers of corporate hierarchy had dissolved, replaced by genuine curiosity and respect. Colleagues who had barely acknowledged my existence were now eagerly asking questions, their voices tinged with awe rather than condescension. Some were taking notes on their phones, while others whispered excitedly about potential implications for our own company's sustainability initiatives. As I wrapped up the demonstration, showing real-time data visualizations and success metrics from preliminary tests, I noticed something remarkable. The same people who had spent years dismissing me were now looking at me with a mixture of admiration and perhaps even a touch of fear. The power dynamic had flipped entirely, not through confrontation or revenge, but through the undeniable force of innovation and achievement. Their previous judgments hung in the air like ghosts, rendered obsolete by the reality of what I had created. The revelation had ignited something unexpected in the room, a collective awareness of how profoundly wrong they had been. Eyes that had once slid past me without recognition were now fixed with intensity, trying to reconcile their past perceptions with the reality standing before them. The office party, intended as a casual gathering of colleagues, had transformed into something far more significant, a moment of truth that would ripple through our professional lives forever. As I concluded my presentation, the room erupted into a cacophony of reactions that ranged from genuine excitement to palpable discomfort. Some colleagues approached me with newfound respect, their questions reflecting genuine interest in the technology and its potential applications. Others maintained a careful distance, their body language betraying a mix of admiration and unease. The atmosphere crackled with an electric tension, as if the very fabric of our workplace dynamics had been irrevocably altered. Greg from accounting, who had been particularly vocal in his criticism earlier, found himself at the center of an awkward situation. His attempts to congratulate me were stilted, his usual confident demeanor replaced by visible discomfort. "You know, Sarah," he began, fiddling with his tie, "we always knew you had potential. Just, maybe we didn't fully appreciate it until now." His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken regret and poorly disguised damage control. Michelle from HR seemed torn between professional duty and personal embarrassment. She approached me with a clipboard, as if seeking refuge in official protocol. "We should discuss how your project aligns with company goals," she suggested, though her tone betrayed uncertainty about how to handle this unprecedented situation. Her usual authority appeared shaken, replaced by a tentative respect that manifested in frequent glances at my laptop and hastily scribbled notes. The most surprising reaction came from our department manager, Mr. Thompson, whose annual performance reviews had consistently rated me as adequate but lacking initiative. He materialized at my side, his expression caught somewhere between pride and panic. "Sarah, why didn't you mention any of this during our one-on-ones?" he asked, his voice carrying a note of desperation. "We could have supported you, provided resources." His words trailed off as he realized how hollow they sounded given the company's history of dismissing my suggestions and requests for professional development opportunities. Throughout the room, conversations took on a surreal quality. Groups of colleagues who had previously excluded me from their circles now found themselves discussing my achievements with a mixture of wonder and competitive anxiety. The marketing team huddled together, whispering about how my platform could revolutionize their campaigns. The IT department debated technical aspects of my solution, their professional pride wounded by the realization that someone outside their domain had achieved what they considered their exclusive territory. The emotional landscape of the party had undergone a seismic shift. Where there had been casual camaraderie and mild contempt, there now existed a complex web of reactions, admiration tempered by guilt, excitement mixed with defensiveness, and curiosity laced with professional insecurity. The air vibrated with unspoken questions. What did this mean for everyone's positions? How had they misjudged me so completely? What other secrets might their quiet colleague be hiding? As I navigated this transformed social environment, I realized that my revelation had done more than just change perceptions. It had exposed fundamental truths about human nature and workplace dynamics. The same people who had dismissed me as insignificant were now grappling with the consequences of their assumptions. Their reactions revealed layers of complexity, the conflict between genuine appreciation and professional rivalry, between admiration for achievement and remorse for past behavior, between excitement about innovation and fear of disruption. The party continued, but it had taken on an entirely different character. Conversations ebbed and flowed around me, carrying currents of change and uncertainty. Some colleagues attempted to rewrite history, claiming they had always seen potential in me. Others retreated into defensive postures, questioning the practicality of my solution or suggesting it might be too ambitious. Each interaction added another layer to the unfolding drama, creating a tapestry of human response that was both predictable and fascinatingly complex. Standing amidst this transformed social landscape, I realized that the true impact of my revelation extended far beyond mere professional recognition. It had become a mirror, reflecting back to each person their own biases, assumptions, and limitations. The office party, once a mundane corporate ritual, had evolved into something far more profound, a crucible where relationships, perceptions, and professional identities were being fundamentally reshaped. As the evening wore on, the initial shock of my revelation began to crystallize into something more tangible and transformative. The office dynamics that had seemed so rigid and defined were now fluid, shifting in ways that reflected both the promise of innovation and the vulnerability of established hierarchies. In the corner of the room, I noticed Greg from accounting engaged in an animated discussion with several senior managers, his earlier discomfort transformed into strategic enthusiasm. "Imagine the competitive advantage we could gain," he was saying, gesturing toward my presentation slides still displayed on the projector screen. "This isn't just about waste management, it's about positioning ourselves as leaders in smart city technology." The marketing department had commandeered a whiteboard, furiously sketching out campaign ideas that incorporated elements of my platform. Their creative energy, once directed toward conventional advertising strategies, now channeled into envisioning how they could leverage cutting-edge technology to revolutionize public engagement. Even Michelle from HR, who had initially approached me with cautious professionalism, had transformed into an advocate, organizing impromptu brainstorming sessions about how the company could support further technological innovation. What struck me most was how quickly the narrative about me had shifted. No longer was I the subject of derision or dismissal. Instead, I had become a catalyst for organizational change. Colleagues who had once viewed me as professionally stagnant now saw me as a source of inspiration and possibility. Their questions evolved from curious inquiries to earnest discussions about how they could contribute to or benefit from the technological revolution I had initiated. The office party, intended as a simple celebration, had morphed into an incubator of ideas and aspirations. This transformation wasn't limited to professional considerations. On a deeper level, my revelation had triggered a chain reaction of personal growth among my colleagues. Some approached me with confessions of their own unrealized ambitions, seeking advice on how to pursue passions they had kept hidden. Others expressed regret for their previous attitudes, not just toward me but toward innovation in general. The atmosphere was charged with a mixture of excitement and introspection, as if the entire office had been awakened to new possibilities. The most profound impact, however, was on the company culture itself. The rigid boundaries between departments began to dissolve as teams realized the interconnected nature of technological advancement. Engineers spoke with marketers about user experience, while finance professionals discussed funding models for innovative projects. The silos that had defined our workplace for years were crumbling, replaced by a spirit of collaboration driven by shared vision rather than individual ambition. As I observed these changes unfolding around me, I recognized that my journey had transcended personal vindication. It had become a testament to the power of perseverance and the transformative potential of authentic achievement. The office party, once a microcosm of corporate complacency, had evolved into a laboratory of progress and possibility. Each conversation, each new idea, each moment of genuine connection represented a step toward a future where innovation wasn't just celebrated but actively cultivated. Yet beneath this surface transformation lay a deeper truth about human nature and organizational evolution. The same mechanisms that had once dismissed me as insignificant were now embracing change with remarkable speed. This paradoxical response, the rapid shift from skepticism to enthusiasm, revealed something fundamental about the nature of progress. It often requires a catalyst, a moment of undeniable proof that forces people to confront their limitations and embrace new possibilities. The room continued to buzz with activity, but the energy had transformed from casual celebration to purposeful engagement. Ideas flowed freely, unconstrained by traditional boundaries or preconceived notions of professional roles. What had begun as a personal revelation had blossomed into a collective awakening, demonstrating that true innovation doesn't just change products or processes, it transforms people, organizations, and the very culture of progress itself. The office party transformed into a celebration of innovation, with colleagues rallying around Sarah's groundbreaking platform. Her revelation not only earned their respect but also inspired a cultural shift within the company. Encouraged by her success, the organization embraced technological advancement, promoting Sarah to lead a new department focused on sustainable innovation. As she stood at the helm of this transformation, Sarah realized her journey had not just been about personal vindication, it was about igniting change and proving that perseverance could turn even the harshest criticism into an opportunity for growth. Cheers erupted in the room as her team toasted to a brighter future, one where underestimating anyone's potential seemed like a thing of the past.